What's something you can't believe you had to explain to another adult? This happened to me about 20 years ago when I still lived in Alabama. I needed a little cash, so I drove to my bank to pick some up during business hours. This was quite a few years before any of our local banks had automated tellers. I used the drive-thru where I wrote a personal check to cash for $50, if I remember correctly. I then gave the check and my identification, my passport as I had lost my driver's license a couple days before, to the teller. The teller, let's call her Charlotte, takes my passport, looks at it and, over the intercom, says to me, as though very probably dealing with an idiot, "Sir, I'm gonna need a valid photo identification." I don't even know what this here is. Imagine Dolly Parton doing a parody of her own southern accent. I tried my best not to seem a condescending prick and replied, "That's my passport issued by the United States Department of State. I can assure you that it is a valid form of photo identification. Just look at it. There's a US flag and a picture of an bald eagle and everything." "Well, be that as it may, I'm gonna need a driver's license or something, otherwise I can't give you no cash." She insists. "What you have there is most definitely something. Perhaps you should confer with one of your colleagues or even a manager." I suggest. "Betty, can you come over here and look at this?" She asks of one of her colleagues. This gentleman claims that this is a valid photo identification. "Do you even know what this is?" Betty looks at me and says, "Sir, we're gonna need a valid form of photo identification like a driver's license or something." I give the classic two-handed facepalm and, after a long-suffering sigh, I say it's a passport. It's issued by the United States government to US citizens who generally use them to travel abroad, and it is definitely a valid government-issued photo ID. By this time a third teller, let's call him Carl, is involved. I think it's one of those things you use to go to foreign country or something. He says to Charlotte and Betty. He looks at me, "Sir, this is a bank. It ain't no airport. We're going to need a valid photo identification like a driver's license or something." At this point I'm no longer trying to avoid being a condescending prick when I ask, "Can one of you ignorant savages fetch a manager? Preferably one that's traveled beyond the borders of the great state of Alabama." After a round of well I nevers, Betty takes off in a huff to retrieve the bank manager. When he arrives, Charlotte looks at me smugly and says, "Bill, this gentleman wants withdraw cash, but he doesn't have valid photo identification, he only has this." And with this she presents Bill, the bank manager, with my passport. Bill looks at me sheepishly and there is an audible click as the intercom shuts off. Because of this I didn't hear exactly what Bill said to Charlotte, Betty, and Carl, but judging from their body language and the way their eyes all drifted downward I would guess it was none too kind. Then a click as the intercom springs back to life and Bill says, "Please allow me to apologize, Mr. Estes. I promise you that nothing like this will ever happen again. Would 2 20s and a 10 be okay?"